Welcome back to my channel, everyone. As you can see, I've done some wrapping to the F-150. The side you're looking at is the pink, but on the other side I've got the green. So I mixed and matching colors, and it turned out to be pretty good. I like it so far. But the topic of today that I want to talk about is water. When you're camping or overlanding out here, it is critical that you find a safe and reliable water source. In this video, I'll talk about everything I've learned about water in the past 3 to 4 years of camping and overlanding, ranging from storing water, finding a good water source, filtering them, disinfecting them. I'll go into the detail of each step, sharing my experiences. I also mention some of the setups I've used during the past few years of camping and overlanding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my setup is gonna work out for you. I'm just hoping that by sharing mine, you can have some insights in designing your own water system that best suits your needs. But keep in mind that I'm not a professional, I'm not pretending to be one, so everything I share in this video is gonna be based on my own perspective and thoughts and experience. But still, I think this video might be helpful to some of you out there who's just getting started overlanding or backpacking. Yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna break this video down into different sections. First one, we're gonna talk about the distinction between potable and non-potable water, how to store them, how to filter them, and the setups I've used so far. And then we're gonna talk about choosing the right water source for a purpose. And then we're gonna move on to talk about filtering water and disinfecting water to make it safe to drink and use. And let's start out with non-potable water, which is non-drinking water. Since I started out camping and overlanding about 3 to 4 years ago, I've used 3 different types of water storage system, and each of them are about 5 gallons or 22 liters in capacity, and that's pretty much enough for me. I'm traveling solo most of the time, so I really don't need that much of water. And since water is pretty heavy, I'm not gonna carry all the water I need on a, say, like a month of a trip. So mostly I just use them and refill them as I need. 5 gallons might sound a lot, and it probably is a lot. Say right now I'm on a weekend trip, I'm just camping here for tonight. I'm not gonna use up the whole 5 gallons unless I take a shower or do something crazy about it. But on longer trips, everybody had to take shower at some point. So a full tank of 5 gallons of water typically lasts me about 3 to 4 days if I take a shower during that period of time. But if I really want to conserve it, that can probably last me about a week. But back in Arizona and Utah, I basically take showers every day, and that just lasts me a day or two. So how long the water can last really depends on how you use it, obviously. During my early years of SUV and car camping, I've used Nemo's potable water jug, which is a 22 liter or 5 gallon, pretty big water jug with a pump at the bottom that you can step on to pressurize the water. I do have a few complaints about that. First, this soft bladder is quite awkward to handle when full, not only because it's bouncy, but the handle is also a very narrow, rubbery strap that tends to dig into your hand when it's filled up. Second, it's bulky and it's pretty difficult to store in a car because of its cylindrical shape. The water jug really tends to tip over when placed upright or roll around when laid flat. And third, the system is quite complex. As I mentioned, there's a pump at the bottom that you have to step on to pressurize the whole tank to use the water inside. After 2 years of using in temperature from negative 25 degrees to over 50 degrees, the fitting started to loosen up. The seal on the cap started to break down, and my jug just started to not be able to hold any pressure. At that point, it's just a big water container. But despite all these problems, the Nemo bladder is still a turning point for me, since it was my first step from 0 to 1. Before that, I don't really have any water storage solutions, so I can't really camp out there off the grid for too long. If you're on a budget, or you're just starting out camping, or you're just camping very, very occasionally, the Nemo bladder might still be a pretty good option for you. So soon after, my Nemo bladder got leaked, and started to have this setup. This is a jerry can paired with the battery, and there's a pump inside, which is powered by the battery. The water will come out from this garden hose and a sprayer on top. So this is a pretty neat setup, to be honest. As you may know, the jerry can was designed in World War II by Nazi Germany. When it first came out, the purpose of that is just to quickly and efficiently transport fuel to power the war. The construction here is really solid and sturdy, so a lot of overlanders tend to put it outside and mount it on their rigs. And the good thing about this is the rectangular shape, you can stack them up. You'd have to be limited to the 5 gallons. You can do 10 or 15, you just stack them up. As you can see, the system is pretty complex. And when you're out in the wild, any step or any component breaks down, it's gonna compromise the whole setup. If the battery goes out, if the pump gets jammed, if there's something wrong with the sprinkler and it just doesn't work, you're not gonna use it, obviously. The second problem I had with this, I kind of asked for it because I wanted to put it inside the bed, is that you have to move this 50+ pound or 22 kilogram stuff on and off the truck pretty often to get it filled up, or even if you just want to wash your hands. But you know, it's a personal trade-off to choose between having dirt all over this canister or put it inside the bed and move it around. But so far, the 2 problems I had with this thing is quite minor compared to the third one, which is quite serious. I do not know this for a fact, but a lot of the plastic containers seem to have one single problem. So after filming the Joshua Tree episode about a month ago, I started prepping for this trip. I got super busy and I completely forgot to dump all the remaining liquids inside the jerry can. And the jerry can, with all the leftover water, just sits in my truck bed for about a week and under the blazing hot sun of Southern California. And after I opened it up, I noticed there are a bunch of algae growing inside the tube, inside the canister, just basically everywhere. I do not know the scientific fact about why plastic containers seem to grow algae, but in my experience, metal containers are much better in this sense. One thing to be noted, I also forgot to dump all the remaining water in the Domatic water jug after shooting the Joshua Tree National Park episode. But to my surprise, there's nothing going on here. I'm not sure if it's because Domatic has some sort of coating going on inside the canister, whereas the jerry can might be just a plastic container. And until quite recently, when I get to Denver, I upgraded this setup to a dirt box water tank. This water tank is mounted with quick release brackets on the side of the camper, which makes it super easy to take off and refill. The shape of the tank also integrates quite nicely with the shower awning mounted at the back. The whole setup looks really clean. One huge plus of the metal construction is how fast the water heats up in the sun. Even when it's cloudy or freezing cold, the metallic construction allows me to stick a self-made heating rod inside the tank. If I am to use this rod inside the jerry can, then we might have a problem. Additionally, there are a few thoughtful designs I really like on this canister. So first off, as you can see, there's a water gauge on the side. It shows the water level inside the tank. You'd have to open it up and visually see if you need to refill or not. And second, there's an air inlet and also a pressure release mechanism to ensure safety. These thoughtful designs really goes a long way. That said, I haven't been using that quite extensively, so throughout this trip, I'll be testing it, and I might make a future video to tell you guys about the updates and how it performs. Moving on to potable water, since you're directly consuming it, you gotta be more cautious for its source, how you store it, how you filter it. When I just started out camping, I just stock up a pile of bottled water in my trunk, and those are easy to find and they are guaranteed to be safe to drink. But the downsides are obvious. First, you're wasting a lot of space because in between bottles there are spaces that you could have utilized to put in more water in there. And second, it's a lot more expensive than just finding your own water and filter it or just get it from the water fountains. And third, you're really producing a lot of waste that you must have carried in and carried out to get rid of it. And later, when I got into hiking and backpacking, I switched to water bladders. I got 3 of the 3-liter Camelback water bladders, so totaling a 9-liter capacity. Comparing to the bottled water, bladders are more space efficient and they're cheaper and they're also more portable. But water bladders aren't always the easiest thing to clean. You gotta stick your hands through the hole and really scrub down the tight corners. That's not a pleasant thing to do. Additionally, because they're plastic, they also tend to develop odor or there's the biofilm algae problems going on there. And until a few months ago, I switched to the Domatic water tank right here. So this is a 11-liter water tank. It comes with the electronic tap. You just tap on the top, and here goes your drinking water. Super portable for car camping, and that's why I put it on the Moley panel on the driver's side of the truck, and I cut open a rectangular shape opening on the side to make it easier for me to have access to water when I'm inside the camper. Like I mentioned earlier, this thing never fails on me. It never had any sort of algae problem so far in comparison to the jerry can. So super reliable. In addition to the water tank, I also have this 10-liter Sea to Summit water bag. That's a backup storage. So normally speaking, I only drink about 3 liters of water per day, and this thing will last me about 3 to 4 days. When I'm out there in Moab or Joshua Tree National Park, you just can't find water anywhere, so I have to use the water bladder for extended use. And these two combined will give me 21 liters of drinking water, which means I can live off grid for a full week, 7 days if I have to. That said, I still keep a few bottles of waters, a couple liters usually, in the truck just for backup emergency. I never really use them, just for safety precautions. All right, the sun just came out and I had to put on my hat. Apologize for that. Now we're moving on to water sources. So water contamination generally falls into a few categories. You got sediments like dirt or mud, you got parasites, you got bacteria, viruses, heavy metal contaminations, and you also got organic pollutants like fertilizers or pesticides. Sediments or mud or dirt, these are basically everywhere, so you should be expecting them in every sorts of water sources that you're going to find. And parasites and bacteria, these often come with animal waste. But animals are quite ubiquitous out here. You should also be expecting some parasites and bacteria in the source of water that you're drinking. Now, viruses are a little bit different because it generally comes from human waste. If there are human activity in upper stream, especially if there are human waste dumped into the water and contaminated. And heavy metal contaminations usually come from mining activities in the past. Elements like mercury or lead are often present in like gold mines or silver mines, and these heavy metal ions can be washed into the stream by direct contact or by rainwater. Organic pollutants usually come from pesticides or fertilizers used in farming or agricultural activities, or actually there are also industrial pollutions that happen quite a bit in the past. So if you're having agricultural lands or industrial lands nearby when you're trying to get water, be cautious of the organic pollutants that might be present in the water source. Once you understand the contaminants, it gets easier for you to actually choose water sources that are safer to drink. In general, trust your instincts. They're called instincts for a reason. For example, the water in Grinnell Lake in Montana, it looks so muddy and murky and stuff because of the minuscule mineral particles called glacier flour that are basically teeny tiny rocks grind up by the glacier that are present in the water. But you don't really need to know this little fun fact to come to realize that the glacier water isn't probably safe to drink unless you actually filter out those muddy or murky parts. That said, intuition only serves as a sufficient but unnecessary condition for finding a safe water source, because the water can look safe but isn't actually safe to drink at all. The more systematic approach to find a safe water source really is to prioritize moving water over stagnant water or dead water, because the stagnant water is more prone to build up bacteria or pesticides and all that waste. And also try to prioritize upstream over lower stream, because there could be uncontrolled tributaries to the lower stream that you don't really know if it's polluted or not, and causing the water source to be contaminated. And finally, really the best way to prevent drinking bad water is just to take a look at the topo maps or watershed maps beforehand to really know that if there are going to be old mining towns in the upstream or farmlands or industrial productions that have been going on there. One special case is the, so to speak, hard water that is high in either calcium or magnesium or both. Those water aren't really healthy for you to drink over time, but they are not technically poisonous or contaminated, so that falls out of the scope of our discussion today. But some type of water, like the hard water I just talked about, or water low in heavy metal contaminations, can actually be used to, washing hands, that kind of stuff, or just in general cleaning, but you definitely don't want to consume it directly. So when you're trying to use those waters, be sure you know the difference. All right, now let's talk about purification and disinfection. Just because you might take the clearest water source there is, doesn't mean the water from that source is safe to drink. So my first step is always filtration. In my truck, I have two different filter systems. First one is MSR, and the second is the Sawyer filter. The MSR, I use it mostly when car camping, because as you can see, the footprint is quite bulky in comparison to the Sawyer here. This thing, or this system, comes with a 10-liter dirty water bag. Just put the dirty water in there, 10 liter at a time, and the gravity is gonna pull it down to this tube through this filter and out with the clean water. And moving on to Sawyer. So when I just started out backpacking, I stick to the conventional method, having a few water bladders and the standalone filtration system, like a live straw or some sort. But over the past few years, I started to learn more about thru hiking and thru hikers, how they pack their stuff. I got more interested into a quite simplistic method like this. So the Sawyer filter has a thread on one end, and it has the water outlet on the other. You can screw this on any sort of bottles you find in a grocery store or a convenience store. So most bottles are really compatible with this, so you don't have to worry about that. The plus side of this thing is it's super portable. You don't have to pre-fill anything to get clean water. You just use your bottle, get the dirty water inside, screw it on, you can just drink it directly from it. And second, let's be realistic, the water bladders aren't really bulletproof. They tend to leak, they have algae problems from time to time. And the plus side of this is that if it's leaked or it have algae in it, you can just quickly swap it out with a new bottle that you can find in basically any grocery store or convenience store. These two filters, they serve quite different purpose, but they serve as a backup for each other. So one of them fails, I still have the other one to make sure I have safe water to drink. When you're buying a filter for yourself, you should pay attention to the filtration size, which means how fine a filter is actually going to be. So for example, this one, Sawyer, the filtration size is going to be 0.1 microns, whereas this one is going to be 0.2 microns. Even though it might differ, but 0.1 and 0.2 microns will definitely get the parasites and also bacteria out of your water. But not all water filters are going to be able to filter out parasites or bacteria. So be cautious when you buy those and make sure you know what you're getting. A good practice when you're filtering out super muddy water is to kind of pre-filter it through a piece of cloth or any sort of fiber that can get rid of the bigger particles inside of water, because those filters are pretty tiny in diameter and the bigger stuff tend to clog it pretty easily. So by doing that, you're really extending the lifespan of your filter. And after filtering my water, I tend to do disinfection as well, because while you can get rid of most bacteria and parasites by filtering it, you cannot get rid of viruses, which are a lot smaller than those two. And that's where chemical treatments comes in handy. So just like the filters, I have two different methods of disinfecting my water that I have on my truck. These two are chlorine dioxide and this is iodine pills. Each of these has pros and cons, but they do function quite similarly. Both of them work by releasing reactive molecules to penetrate and oxidize the microbes, effectively destroying their biological activities. The iodine pills, these are cheaper and a lot easier to find than chlorine dioxide, but has two major problems. First, it gives your water a really weird iodine smell or odor to it, and it's not really pleasant to drink it. And second, it gives you extra unnecessary iodine consumption. So it might not be healthy for certain groups of people. And because of that, I mostly use the iodine pills to disinfect large quantities of non-drinkable water. Now let's talk about chlorine dioxide. These are more expensive, but the plus side is that they have a broader spectrum against microbes. Unlike iodine pills, these don't really leave a bad taste to your water. And the byproduct of this is really just chlorine ions floating in the water. It's like salt, so it's not harmful for your body at all. So I mostly use these to treat my potable or drinking water. And obviously there's the old-fashioned boiling kind of method to treat water. But the problem with that is the boiling point of water drops as elevation gains. So if you're on Alpine Loop or somewhere high in Colorado, the boiling temperature of water can drop to, I don't know, 80 or 90 degrees Celsius, which isn't that effective against certain microbes. And another problem with doing that is that by boiling tens of liters or a few gallons of water, you're really wasting a lot of fuel. So if you're heading to somewhere that you know the water is contaminated, the best practice is just to bring your own water to drink. The last thing I'll say about water in general is that I learned actually quite recently diluted bleach solutions can actually be pretty effective against biofilms or algae growth. But I have not tried that out just yet, so I'm gonna give it a go and see if it actually works. And I might actually make a future video after testing those and let you guys know how it goes. So this is for this one. I basically ran down the whole topic of water that I have encountered when camping or overlanding. And I did share a few equipments I've used that or I'm using. I hope this is helpful for you guys out there. and consider leaving a like or subscribe if you like, and peace out.